Okay, so let's get right into the nitty gritty. We are going over Blackbeard. This is a continuation from a stream, I think 2 weeks ago. Mm, Coffee. So, Blackbeard is obviously a very mysterious character. We're going over every single appearance, panel. I'm often taking spots where people are talking about him as well, and we're just breaking it down and seeing what we can learn about him. Last stream, we spent a lot of time, obviously, on the introduction in Jaya and how he is a foil to Luffy. He's this, like, somebody that has an equal ambition, but maybe for the opposite reason or something, right? He's um, the dark side of Luffy's light side. What we talked a lot about in the Jaya part is how Blackbeard loves to he's a big talker. Luffy's not a big talker. And when he was doing his big talking, he starts talking about dreams and how dreams never end. And what I found really interesting about that was that Luffy's dream, when he talks about it in the kind of post Wano go into Egghead section, Luffy says he shares his dream with the crew, something that Joy Boy and Roger shared as well. And Luffy says that's what's at the end of my dream. And so knowing knowing what we know now about Luffy's dream, when we go back and look at Blackbeard and Jaya, we can see that they actually have essentially opposite views of the purpose of dreams. Luffy's dream is to do something and to accomplish it and be done, and maybe Blackbeard's dream is to just kind of wanting more and more and more. And then the next major time that we look at Blackbeard is when he's going against Ace. And he shows off his dark fruit, which it's like a black hole or space or emptiness, and it has infinite gravity, just like a black hole. And so it's absorbing everything. It can even absorb or take away devil fruit powers, and it's probably central in how Blackbeard can steal steal devil fruits entirely from somebody else, killing them in the process. And so ultimately, Blackbeard is somebody who is just this force of chaos in the world. He's full of ambition like Luffy, but his ambition has this twist where he wants to take things from others. He wants to use people, use things, and doing it all for his own gain. Whereas Luffy wants that same freedom. He doesn't do it for his own power or anything like that. He would never do that. He would do that for meat, perhaps. The Hydra in the Dark Ocean. Is there a new theory about Blackbeard, about him being like a Hydra or something? That'd be interesting. The Cerebus theory dies and up pops the Hydra theory. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what is kind of the roots of Blackbeard's darkness, right? He's not necessarily evil or something, I would say, but he wants to rule the world. He wants to have all the power. He's just like consuming. So, when we see him next from where we left off at the Ace, we don't really see him, but we get this is kind of nearing the climax of Thriller Bark. We get Bartholomew Kuma showing up and talking to the weirdo Gecko Moria, and Moria is like, "What are you even doing here, man? Like, I'm just chilling. I'm gonna whoop this kid's ass." And Kuma basically shows up and he's like, "Hey, like, I'm just warning you because he already took out one of the warlords, Crocodile, and we ended up having to replace him with Blackbeard, or Marshal D. Teach. This is notably kind of weird because Blackbeard is somebody that has never had a bounty. Well, I think he was a wanted man. I can't remember where this came from, if it was from Oda originally, but he's had a bounty as somebody that's part of the Whitebeard pirates, but his bounty is 0, right? So they're surprised that the government approved of it. So the question becomes, did the government know more about Blackbeard before, or did they truly knew nothing? Did they just not want to draw attention to him, or is he as big of a surprise to them as everybody else? Kizaru's real opposite. That's interesting. So are you said the ruler of Wano, are you thinking Blackbeard's going to Wano soon? Hmm. So that's pretty much the gist there. I'm gonna get the next one open. Gotta go to 41. Looks like I didn't crop this properly. Fix it right now. All right. I kind of had to cut off part of the top, but it doesn't really matter. We just see Blackbeard here eating with the other 7 warlords. This is the summit before the Paramount War. He's looking to kind of fit in. But if you remember, Blackbeard really has no intention of participating in the war. Oh, Hydra, the Dark Ocean, the ruler of Wano. Yeah, that'd be interesting. So then we go forward to Impel Down, where Ace is being transported away from Impel Down and to Marineford for his execution, and ultimately where the entire war is going to take place. The Navy is basically aware that Impel Down is in complete chaos, primarily because of the appearance of Luffy. But they don't really have time to deal with that right now. They're busy with the whole Whitebeard thing, right? But one of their most essential powers is the seven wonders, the 7 warlords. And Navy HQ, they're like, hey, so that guy, that new warlord, Blackbeard, yeah, he just never showed up. Which is confusing because Blackbeard's the one that captured Ace, handed him over to the Navy. You would think he'd be kind of, if he wanted to become one of the 7 warlords, then what's going on? And then the final 2 panels of this page. We see that they're starting to understand the gravity of the situation. That there's a battleship that wasn't given clearance that's just arriving at Impel Down. So maybe it's related to Blackbeard. And of course, Blackbeard is using his level of access as a warlord to gain access to Impel Down, ultimately to recruit more pirates to his side, powerful pirates, because that's what Blackbeard wants. He wants power. Notably, like, Luffy does not recruit just somebody based off of power. He feels a connection with them, and then sometimes he can offer them a spot in the ship if he can tell that's something that they would want to do. If they have if they have goals that align, that go towards both of their dreams, Luffy would be very interested in that. Do not want to crop. Photoshop. Okay. I don't. Close these so I don't get confused. Sometimes I get easily confused. Okay. Yeah, Luffy wants the coolest people. That's definitely true. Yeah, and Blackbeard, he just wants somebody for power. He doesn't really care too much if they trust each other and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Main entrance, Impel Down. They're like, we gotta call in for, you gotta get a permit to get in here. And Blackbeard's like, I don't care. And they're very confused because they're like, all right, I thought we made an alliance and that did not work out well. Now, did Blackbeard kill these guys? Probably. I don't think Blackbeard's a very good guy. We get this kind of awesome panel, I would say, of his crewmates. One of them has some type of like angel shit going on. He's got big ass bird wings. Um, I would say it could be like some type of Zoan fruit, and this is like his hybrid form. But it could also be a mythical Zoan, obviously. Especially if Blackbeard recruited him after he already had this fruit. I think this guy's name is Doc Q. He's got that sick stuff, and he's just always very ill. You got Van Augur. He looks a bit sad here, but ultimately we also have Blackbeard, Jesus Burgess, but Blackbeard here, he's kind of way more decked out than when we saw him in Jaya. Brought 3 pistols here, even though we've never seen him basically shoot him. He says, it's all right, I'm with the government now. This kind of hostile takeover of the government right here kind of reminds me a little too much of current events in the world. Take a look. I'm going to keep an eye on his teeth a little bit. Because I don't think Oda makes that many mistakes with drawing his teeth, and a lot of people have talked about this. But before, I remember that there was one tooth missing in the middle, one tooth missing on, the left side from my perspective, his right side of his mouth, and then another one missing on kind of the opposite of his top teeth. But here, looks a little different, but could be a little bit of a perspective thing. But if we see this changing frequently, especially with a change in his personality, it could be noteworthy. He's got beads on beads on beads. And dude does not hit the gym. His legs are, he's got some chicken legs. Just putting away those cherry pies all day, I guess. Yeah, Don Q sounds like cheap liquor. Maybe that's what's wrong with him. He drank too much cheap liquor. But other than that, Blackbeard looks pretty much the same. He looks very serious. Very serious. But has a sense of humor still. I do think that's really funny that he comes in and he's like, don't worry, I'm with the government. All right. All right. And he's just blasting people with his darkness fruit. Just kind of crazy. So basically, how this works here, right? He absorbed all this, like, steel and shit, maybe pieces of, like, a ship. He absorbed it all with his dark fruit. And then he's using the ability Liberation to just blast it out of his own body at them. That is a pretty nasty ability, because he can, as we saw when he fought Ace, he basically like absorbed a whole town and then shot it out. So it kind of reminds me of Caribou, the guy with the swamp fruit. Kind of reminds me of that. Okay, man. Like, this is. Now he's not missing any teeth? Oh no, I don't want to fill. Not want to fill. That is weird. A little bit weird even for Oda. So I mean, maybe he just thought the drawing looked better. But I still think that's a little weird. Now, when these people are going into this darkness, I wonder what actually happens to them. Do they just like disappear? We kind of get an update on the situation in Impel Down. Blackbeard just entered. Luffy, Crocodile, Jimbei, Iva, Mr. 2, Mr. 1, and Inazuma are all coming up from level 6, where they tried to get Ace. And they're currently at level 4. We got Buggy and Mr. 3 and some hooligans at level 2 going up. And they don't show where Magellan is at the moment. We're going to find out that here soon too. Going nuts at Mardi Gras, yeah. Just like how Luffy can regrow teeth with milk. You know, I remember Brook can regrow all, like fix all his bones too with some milk. I've been rereading Thriller Bark and he gets like, he's basically dead and then he drinks some milk and he's fine. I'm like, oh, nice. So Magellan just got done killing a bunch of really weak people on level 2. So that's something. That's something. So he's basically an asshole. That's just messed up, man. These guys, that's messed up. Magellan has no idea why Blackbeard would attack them. And he's going to head towards Blackbeard. And that does not go well for Blackbeard at all. So Magellan's measures that he took against Blackbeard was that he is releasing Shiryu of the Rain, the head jailer of Impel Down, who was thrown in jail himself because he just was just murdering people for just the fun of it. And so he lets Shiryu out to deal with Blackbeard, and Shiryu's like, "Sure, I'll do that. Sounds good." But he really had no intention of doing it at all, and he just destroys these other weak dudes because I don't think at the moment he knows he's going after Blackbeard to join his crew, but I think he's very interested by such a move. 6, 7. Do that. I want to close these other ones real quick so it doesn't get too crazy. Is Shiryu a giant? Who are you asking of who's a giant? Yeah, none of them tried to save him despite working together. That's true. So, no, I don't think he's a giant. I mean, giants are like a full-blooded giant is like 60 to like 90 feet tall. Or in meters, I guess, in case you use meters, that's like 17 meters to like 25 meters tall. Super tall. Super tall. So there's not very many giants, like straight up giants around. There's a couple giants at Enies Lobby. The Navy has, I think, at least one Vice Admiral giant and a couple others. Is he an Oni? That's a little bit more of a possibility. But a lot of these like races that are not human, like normal humans, there's just not very many of them left. So I think oftentimes they don't really know who they are. Nobody really knows what they are. They're kind of just they're almost like mythological to a lot of people. Like even fishmen, which we've seen plenty of fishmen in the series, but you got to remember like most people in the One Piece world, they don't go anywhere. They're stuck on their island their entire life, and some of them are as small as something like Syrup Village or something. So the odds of encountering a fisherman without going on an adventure yourself is extremely low, and you still might never do that if you still might never meet a fisherman because, like, if you're in the East Blue and stuff, you got to remember, like, Fishman Island is on the Grand Line under the Red Line. So any fishermen that you run into, they have to, like, make it all the way up to the surface. They got to, like, escape the Grand Line to get out to the East, South, North, West Blue, something like that. Or you just have to be living on the Grand Line. So not very many times you can see a fisherman in general. And that goes for a lot of the races. Like, even in Wano, nobody's like, oh, Kaido, he's an Oni. They're just like, Kaido he's a guy or something. I don't know. I think we're going to be learning a lot more about the races soon in the manga. This is where Blackbeard and Luffy meet again for the second time. Here we go. He's like, I know you're the dude that beat Crocodile's ass. He's like, I was planning on coming to kill you, but things changed. And Ace, who I don't think Blackbeard knew that was his brother. Well, now he knows, because when they were fighting, he's like, that's my brother. Ace ended up getting the dark side of the checkered fate. Ace is, if that makes sense, like, the plan was that Luffy would get attacked by Blackbeard. That's kind of like one of the two possible fates that Luffy could have. And if Luffy was captured by Blackbeard and then offered to the Navy, it's hard to know what would happen, right? I think we would get a similar situation where the Navy would find out who Luffy's dad is, and they would probably try to draw out the Revolutionary Army. There is a little bit of a question of how much the Navy actually particularly cares about Dragon, because Dragon is not he's not chaotic like a pirate. He's this organized military force and ultimately looking to kind of upend the world government, specifically the Celestial Dragon. So I haven't really seen the Navy care too much about Dragon in particular, but I think they would still take that as an opportunity to try to lure out Dragon, because ultimately they're beholden to the world government. So, the tides of change made it so that Ace managed to find Blackbeard in time to intercept him before he goes after Luffy, and Luffy wouldn't have been able to beat him. He was too hurt after Enies Lobby, plus Blackbeard's Devil Fruit ability was just too nasty. Now, there could have been a problem where Blackbeard's crew was a lot less complete than it is compared to Luffy's crew at the time. I think the Blackbeard pirates as a crew could have potentially had a pretty rough time taking on all the Straw Hats at once, who are very good at working with a team, and I do not expect the same from the Blackbeard pirates. And Blackbeard says as much about fate, reminding us of the checkered fate. He says, fate protected you. Ace had been chasing me because I committed a terrible crime aboard Whitebeard's ship, and by coincidence, he was your brother. And boy, is that coincidence, because Luffy and Ace are not brothers because of blood, they're brothers because of a bond that they shared. And that in itself is a coincidence that they ever met. It's almost a miracle that Ace was born at all. Almost a miracle that Luffy was born at all, because Luffy is the biological son of Dragon, right? It would have been very easy for Dragon to just not have a kid at all. But they both happen to exist. Because I said I was going to kill you, he was unable to turn back. Meaning, Ace couldn't run from the fight now. Ace would never ever turn back anyways. I will just say that. Just wouldn't happen. But Blackbeard doesn't know Ace like we do. You see, if he let us go, not only would he defile the name of Whitebeard, his own brother would be killed. There's no such thing as coincidence. There's only fate, says Van Augur. In other words, Doc Q says, yes, you're a very lucky man. Damn, he really, like, you can have whatever doctor you want. But if you go to the doctor and he looks like Doc Q, just get a different doctor. I mean, go a different day or something. I don't know. Your doctor shouldn't look like that. It's not going to end well. Now that the captain has successfully become one of the 7 warlords, he doesn't need your head anymore. Weehehehe. Your brother fought bravely. Oh, you were talking about Magellan as a giant? No, definitely not. Definitely tough to say what Magellan is, though, because he kind of looks kind of like baboony or something. So, can put him in the realm of like a mink variant or something. The Egyptian guy, Hannibal. I have no idea what that guy. He's a weird dude. He might have been made in a lab for all I know. Yeah, Hannibal, definitely not a giant though. Possibly also like in the Oni or mixed race grounds, but I mean, lots of people in One Piece, they just look weird. He might be wearing like he might be basically cosplaying for all we know. We really don't know much about somebody that looks like that. I would say though, if I had to make a bet, I would say that he is human / Oni. If I just had to say something, And yeah, the Blackbeard Pirates, there's some, I mean, like, honestly, like, in terms of, like, passing the vibe check, Blackbeard probably passes it better than anybody in his crew. They creep me out, I'm gonna be honest. They creep me the hell out. And, Blackbeard's just sitting there talking shit and just thinking that Luffy's not gonna try to wax that ass a little bit. I don't know. You'd better remember to thank Ace at his grave. Oh God, what a nasty little bastard. If he hadn't shown up then, you'd be dead now. And Luffy's like, oh yeah, well, we'll see. And he uses Gear 2, hits him with a nice pop. That's not going to feel very good on anybody, realistically. His crewmates are a little bit like, oh shit, like we weren't expecting that. I will just say that currently Blackbeard's teeth look pretty much the same they did when he entered Impel Down. And it's staying pretty consistent so far. And then Blackbeard pulls out his Black Vortex ability, which uses infinite gravity to pull somebody to him, right? He pulls Luffy, and then he can disable somebody's Devil Fruit abilities like that. Alright. He does this kind of classic take him and smash him into the ground. Normally, Luffy is rubber, and that wouldn't normally hurt, right? So Crocodile's like, what the hell is up with this guy? That is weird. So we know at least that Blackbeard's ability does work on Luffy. I'd be curious how it would work nowadays in the series. Like, I wonder if Luffy remembers that and has kind of like already come up with an idea, because Luffy is such a creative fighter and doesn't talk that much. So probably thinking a lot, hopefully. But I'm sure he is not planning on getting hit by that ability again. But Jinbei's like, hey Luffy, we got an actual mission, dude. We gotta save Ace. Beating Blackbeard is something that can wait. And Jinbei says, that man has been a mystery to me since the first time I saw him on Whitebeard's ship. I don't know where he got it, but right now he has the power to defeat even Ace. So while he hasn't been a particularly dangerous man, he's definitely caught people's attention before. And this power that they see, they don't know exactly what it is immediately. I mean, it's pretty fresh for Blackbeard. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter, right? They got to go after Ace. Blackbeard's teeth are still consistent, by the way. Even if I double check over here. He really is not drawing a missing tooth over there. I'm so curious. Kind of want to go back and check the other times now. That's consistent too. This is his fight against Ace. Yeah, I'm right there. CSC is right there yet. Oh yeah, this is super early. Okay. Definitely a little different. Specifically on this kind of middle left side over here. So weird. Curious if it will change again. Yeah, piano teeth. They definitely look like piano teeth. Oops, I made a duplicate. Guess that happens, huh? Happens to the best of us. Okay. And, Blackbeard's fruit makes sure he, unlike most Logias, he feels everything. He feels it's actually amplified. because of the dark fruit. And he says, "You're stronger than I thought. And your hockey is stronger than the last time I saw you, too." We don't know what hockey is normally at this part of the series, but it does kind of demonstrate that, like, hockey is just something that naturally develops as you're fighting and stuff. So, kind of explains why a lot of the pirates and marines and stuff who've been around for decades, they just kind of naturally develop hockey without probably specifically having like a master to train them how to do it. Crocodile says, "You're Blackbeard, right? I heard some no-name pirate from Whitebeard ship had taken my place, but this is strange. You've been summoned to defend Navy headquarters and yet you're here. You've obviously forfeited the title of Warlord of the Sea by coming here." Which he's like, "That's weird since you just did all this stuff to get this title." And Blackbeard says, "Everything is going according to my plan. There were some bumps along the way, but is there any reason I should tell you about it, Mr. Crocodile?" So this is kind of like the first time that we really see that Blackbeard is, and we get a hint at it, that Blackbeard is this kind of like low-key mastermind of like his deep planning and stuff for this is fueled by his ambition, right? And Crocodile's like, "I don't care. I don't care about you. Don't care about anything you say you're gonna do. Whatever." And then Magellan shows up, which is a big problem for everybody there, but it's about to be a super duper big problem for Blackbeard. And basically everybody, including Iva, is who is a very high up person in the Revolutionary Army, is like, "Oh, we don't want to mess with this guy," which is true. I think Magellan gets, it's kind of forgotten how like ridiculously powerful this guy is, but I don't know. When I first read this, I kind of read the whole situation as like he's like borderline like as strong as an admiral or something. And Blackbeard thinks that this is going well for him, which is a little bit silly, but we'll see. We'll see. Not really much yet on this page about Blackbeard. And here. And this is when Magellan gets kind of like confused because he's like, "I thought Sherry was going to deal with Blackbeard." Okay. They've had all their communications to Navy headquarters been severed. Looks like obviously that Sheryu's doing that because I think he just likes it. It's just fun for him. He literally doesn't say anything but smirk. That dude is crazy. He also has a natural weakness for crocodile. Yeah, yeah. Eva, yeah. Uh, and Magellan is pretty worried about how this is shaking out. Nothing like this has ever happened before. Oops. 6. And finally, Blackbeard runs into Magellan. And he's like, ha ha ha, you're Magellan? And Magellan's like, you're Blackbeard, right? And he's like, yep, I'm Blackbeard, being a cocky guy. And he just gets quickly diced up, him and his entire crew. And I think we're gonna go to the next page here in a second. And they're gonna be 13. I went forward too much. Sorry about that, guys. 56. Okay. Another duplicate. This is the right one, surely. Here we go. And now we get to see Blackbeard in a lot of pain. A lot of pain. Seems like Blackbeard did not do his research about Magellan. Hannibal. 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 I wonder how they say it. I actually don't know. I always just pronounce it to myself Hannibal. I don't know why this guy wants this job as head warden. And he catches up with our guy Luffy. Very concerning, but this is about Blackbeard. Blackbeard is on death's door. You can remember everything they just said about fate when they ran into Luffy. That by a stroke of fate, Blackbeard will be saved. Because Shiryu brought up the antidote. He knew that Magellan could cause some problems, maybe even to himself. So he grabs the antidote. And we get some more stuff about destiny, which is obviously related to fate. And here we go. Blackbeard says, luck may decide who lives and who dies, but whoever gets scared first loses. Let's live for the moment. Pretty sure it's not whoever gets scared first loses. I've seen enough Usopp fights to know that's not necessarily true. Teeth and everything still consistent. He says, I welcome you. Looks like you'll be a great ally for us. Zay ha ha ha. And Shiryu says, I've been waiting to meet somebody like you. Very interesting. That's another interesting thing about Blackbeard and his entire crew, right? Is that we've met a lot of people that are like basically waiting to meet somebody like Luffy. But then with these kind of like I guess I would say less ethical pirates, they see Blackbeard as like, they're like, I was looking for you. Like, this is somebody who I was looking for. Yeah, like a cat. I like that. For Hannibal. Okay. Okay. So, we're cutting forward to more of Marineford, right? And Ace is thinking back. Blackbeard's not here yet. He's on this other page. It's so funny. He's so different. Okay. Has the same laugh, though. The teeth, they're... that's way too thick. The teeth are the same as the entire Impel Down. So, personally, I don't hold too much credence to any of the like the teeth-related theories so far, personally. But we'll keep an eye out on it. Got to give it a fair shake. Now they're talking about leading the second division. This is what used to be Kozuki Odin's position. It's been vacant for a really long time, and they're talking about how Ace should take it. And he's like, hey, teach Blackbeard. He's not Blackbeard yet, he's just teach, but he's like, you should take it. And Blackbeard says, I don't have those kind of ambitions. Do it, Commander Ace. Which is a little bit... It's like, is he lying here? Or is he being honest? Honesty would be... there's two parts of being honest. Honestly being like, I don't have the ambitions of being a division commander. I have ambitions of being king of the world. Or is it like this version of Blackbeard at this moment in time just has none of those ambitions at all and just wants to, hang out on a big ship and eat pizza or whatever? It's an interesting question, but I think ultimately because Blackbeard was planning, he's always been looking for the dark fruit. I think he's being honest that he doesn't have those type of ambitions, and he's probably being more honest in the way of like that's too short-sighted. That's not big enough for me. But I also think that Blackbeard, if he never was able to find the dark fruit, he would have just kept big chillin', right? Yeah, baby Blackbeard does look like Cody Jones. I definitely remember that when I first met Hody Jones, I was like, dude looks a little bit familiar. Then we cut way forward. Way forward to Blackbeard showing up in Marineford, right? Blackbeard has his prize that he went to Impel Down for. Many level 6 prisoners. I don't know how much we know about San Juan Wolf here. He's this giant. If I remember correctly, he is a giant fishman, like type of like mixed race person. Um, But I'm assuming his ass was not in Impel Down, right? Right? Where did they put him? How did they get him out? Maybe that's part of the reason why Oda didn't draw that part of it. Or was he already kind of secretly part of the Blackbeard crew? The fact that he's like wearing the prison garbs, right? The white and black stripes, to me means though that he was a Impel Down prisoner. So, yeah, the logistics around that sound a little bit scary. And they say those are the worst criminals in the world. Their existences have been erased because of the extreme barbarity of their crimes, meaning they're basically mass murderers. Not one of them should be allowed to run free in the world. It's the pirate San Juan Wolf, the great battleship, because he's great. He's massive, right? Guess that's what they use to actually get from Marineford to or from Impel Down to Marineford. Now it's interesting, like, was Blackbeard looking for these specific people? Because if these kind of famous pirates went missing and are presumed arrested and their deaths weren't announced, then he would just know they're in Impel Down, right? For the most part. Blackbeard also recruited Avalo Pizarro, the corrupt king. One interesting thing here is this guy, Avalo Pizarro. That's a very similar necklace to what Teach was running around with. Katarina Devon has another one. And Blackbeard also has two necklaces, and I'm pretty sure one's light and one's dark. Could be just like a subtle signal towards kind of Blackbeard's got some weird stuff going on with the moon and nighttime and stuff like that. He also got heavy drinker Vasco shot. Katarina Devon, the crescent moon killer. She's got a Usopp ass nose. And the chief jailer of Impel Down, Shiryu of the Rain. A real sick bastard. Okay. He looks like an onion. The most have giant prisons, which explains a lot of the spaces they have. Yeah, that's true, actually. That's a good point. That's a good point. They do have giant prison cells, and yeah, that is absolutely true. Could they be Nika believers? Really interesting question. I mean, I was also thinking this too, but I was trying to think how to articulate it a little bit. I think that they are. So, like, there's the whole stuff with the moon and like people who are like the people of the moon and the people of the half moon. I would assume that the confusing thing to me is, right, like the half moon to me reminds me of D. I think of Monkey D. Luffy and that whole faction, and just the Will of D in general. But then Blackbeard is a foil to Luffy, but also has a D, right? Meaning he carries that same will as well, theoretically. but because he's a Blackbeard is from the full moon side of things. Seems possible, right? Something's going on though, right? Something's going on. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they are Nika believers, but maybe they're believers in some type of sun god or moon god or something, bringing a massive change to the world, and they want to be on the winning side, and they might ultimately just see Blackbeard as that person. It'd also be interesting to know how many other people know about this dark fruit that Blackbeard got. Like maybe, like the Nika fruit, maybe the dark fruit has a similar kind of a mythos and purpose behind it, and some other cultures stories and stuff that it's existed, and maybe they're more associated with that. Definitely possible. Yeah, maybe they know of a joy boy that equals sad boy. I like that. Yeah, I definitely think there could be like a fake name thing going on in play as well. I mean, we're gonna look for evidence for stuff like in this analysis, but like in terms of my own time rereading the series and stuff, I haven't seen, like, Oda's very careful about not giving too much information on Blackbeard, anything related to Blackbeard. We'd probably have to ask Shanks. Shanks is somebody that would probably know. All right, I'm gonna take a quick bathroom break. I'll be back in like a minute or two. Put on some music. Meantime, but like forgetting how to use OBS here. But yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. All right, back. All right, so Blackbeard, he's showing up. Got to look at his crew. Double checking that I didn't miss anything. They just basically mentioned that Blackbeard came from the unidentified warship that passed through the gates of justice a while ago. And Sengoku's kind of weirded out because they didn't get any communication about this, and that's because Shiryu of the Rain cut the communications in Impel Down. Oh. Whoa, I haven't really even paid attention to this before. Oh, what is this guy's name? He's from the West Blue. Doesn't really matter too much, but he was like a sheriff in the West Blue. Killed a bunch of people. He says, it was a simple trick. Before we departed, we hypnotized, or he says, I hypnotized the men in the room. The orders were simple: to let any warships that went near the gates of justice pass. But it seems this helped out some others as well, talking about Luffy and Crocodile's plans. This is again kind of that checkered fate thing. The fact that Blackbeard happened to come to Impel Down essentially means that Luffy and Crocodile and everybody else is able to escape. But it's kind of crazy that he has that hypnosis powers and stuff that we see from like Django or whatever in Syrup Village, stuff like that. Is it related to his devil fruit and stuff? Definitely not necessarily. So then Blackbeard just reveals, like, hey, I became one of the 7 warlords so that I could ultimately have the Gates of Justice and Impel Down available to me. And he's not interested in pretending to be an ally with the Navy anymore. And Blackbeard says, yep, I've been planning this since the beginning, making Sengoku feel pretty bad. And Whitebeard is like, God damn it, Teach, you need a spanking. I love Whitebeard so much. Dude is awesome. Let's see here, 60. And we're going to get some pretty interesting looks at Blackbeard here in a second. Pretty excited. And Whitebeard's like, get your ass down here, you little brat. And just bust down that massive wall that they're on. Blackbeard not really using his brain for this moment. I mean, he should have known that was happening. And Whitebeard says, you're the only one I won't call son, Teach. You broke the one iron law on my ship. You murdered your own brother. And that's true. I mean, these guys are, supposed to be brothers in a pretty similar way to Sabo, Luffy, and Ace being brothers. And, like, killing somebody who's your family for power, that's about as dark as it gets, right? And, like, Blackbeard kind of feels bad about it when he was talking to Ace. He made it sound like he kind of feels bad about it, but he's like, look, the fruit chose me. It was just bad luck that Thatch got it. Very weird indeed. And Blackbeard thinks that he has the mustard to compete with Whitebeard. I don't think that's going to go very well for him. Blackbeard says, I respected and looked up to you more than anybody. But you got old. You couldn't even save one of your men from execution. I spared his life on Banara Island, but it was a waste. I respected and looked up to you more than anybody. So why would he... So, I mean, I guess, like, one of the reasons that I could see Blackbeard respecting Whitebeard is this is somebody that commands the power to destroy the world, potentially, with the Tremor fruit. He also says, but you got old. But there's got to be, like, the meaning in there, right? That Blackbeard has to be aware that he's going to get old one day. So what does he have? Is that part of his whole plan? Is that part of his motivation? We know in the Egghead Island arc that he has a duel with Law, and he's planning on probably stealing Law's devil fruit. But it doesn't seem like that was his primary plan. His primary plan was to get the poneglyph stuff. He wasn't aiming specifically for Law, but Law kind of fell in his lap, and he was like, I guess I can make myself immortal now? That's pretty cool. But maybe he wants to immortalize himself in another way. That's, his original plan. And he's starting his black vortex crap, and he's like, hold it right there. It's no use. Your powers don't have any effect on me anymore. Because they're at Whitebeard's feet, right? It's kind of an interesting little piece of information that seems maybe Blackbeard was not aware. Is this really, did I miss one? Careful. B5. Maybe Blackbeard isn't aware that a large amount of hockey can actually negate devil fruit abilities, right? We see this in the rooftop fight with the worst generation versus Big Mom and Kaido. Because they're like, hey, Law, why don't you just like teleport Big Mom off the ledge? And he says it's because of her hockey. And then this is confirmed when the Blackbeard pirates jump Law's crew. And Doc Q's sick fruit gives them like swaps their genders or whatever, and Law undoes that ability with hockey. So Whitebeard basically just clocks him pretty good, but $64, $5. I'm gonna close these old ones real quick. Ground makes sense in second prison. Whitebeard is great. Thatch and teach fear of death every way he can, where that doesn't work on Black. Thatch and teach, yeah. Yeah, like I would say that Blackbeard, I guess like Blackbeard, like it sounds like he's afraid of getting old and dying that way, but he also kind of was talking that big game earlier about, how would I put it? He was talking a big game about like it's the first person who's scared that loses, right? We're gonna just stick with this one. I don't know if I missed one or not, but there's a chance. He basically all he does though is he just waxes a Blackbeard once pretty hard, but Blackbeard's got like some crazy durability, whether that's his own weird ass body or if his devil fruit has some secrets that we don't know about, maybe. Hard to tell. But the whole Blackbeard pirates dive on Whitebeard to end him, and they just blast him and stab him and all that kind of stuff. It is not good. Extremely not good. And we get a quick, as Whitebeard is fading, he thinks back to what Roger was telling him, right? Tells him a little bit about the D. He says, I got this guy Teach in my crew. He's got a D. What's up with that? And so Roger tells him. We don't get to see what it is, obviously. But Whitebeard takes a moment and he's like, hey. Well, he starts a long time ago. So, probably talking about World 1 or World 2. Says, you're not him. Blackbeard says, you're still alive? Whitebeard says, the man Roger's waiting for, aka the man Joy Boy is waiting for, definitely not you, Teach. Just as some who inherited Roger's will, someone will eventually do the same for Ace. You can sever bloodlines, but their flames will never be extinguished. It has been passed down like that since ancient times. Someday, one will arise who will challenge the world and shoulder centuries of history. Now, specifically in terms of what we're talking about Blackbeard here, he's saying, Blackbeard, you're not going to be the one to rise to challenge the world. You're not the one that speaks for the voices of history that have been lost over centuries. He says, when the One Piece is found, the whole world will be turned upside down. Someone will find it. That day will come. And I wonder how much this hurt Blackbeard's feelings. And of course, he says the One Piece does exist. And Blackbeard finds that hilarious. I don't think Blackbeard ever doubted it, right? And we get a little flashback of Blackbeard about what he's truly wanted. Not interested in treasure. He just wanted a family. And that's what he thinks of his last thoughts. And he just evicted Blackbeard from his family. And, I mean, personally, I have to say that, like, whatever Blackbeard wants is his dream. It's got to also be kind of, like, pretty close to the opposite of this, right? And the way I see Blackbeard, like, if your dream is to have a family, you want to share life with other people. You want to share, like, your power is something that is shared around with the people that are with you and around you. But if you're Blackbeard, I don't think he really wants to particularly share it with anybody. I think he wants it all for himself. And by the way, just to reinforce himself, uh, Teach's, Blackbeard's teeth, they've been the same since they were at the beginning. They've been the same since Banaro Island when he fought Ace. Hmm. Blackbeard is a weird dude. We got like 6 or 7 more of these spreads of pages to check out that have Blackbeard in it. Oh. Oh, here, we gone back. See, I must have messed up at some point. This was supposed to be right before Blackbeard get here, but they don't really bring it up, right? I mean, we just see his silhouette. Not really important, right? Okay. I don't think I wouldn't consider that a mess up. Mhm. Okay. Honestly, I kind of forgot about this part when I was just like thinking about what's next. But this is where Blackbeard's gonna steal the fruit. The Whitebeard pirates are still trying to retreat. Things are looking real bad, and then this is Teach's grand plan. Let's begin, and they throw a giant cover over Whitebeard. He's dead, right? So theoretically, it's really interesting because theoretically, as far as we know, that devil fruit should be reborn right now. But I guess it doesn't happen that fast, right? Nobody knows what he's going to do. This is not any level of knowledge anybody knows. Blackbeard goes under the cover. He says, I'll show you the greatest show in the world. And all his powerful crewmates just protect the cover while he does whatever he does. Right? Now, his crew's kind of excited, like, can't wait to see it. And if it fails, like, this probably isn't gonna work out very well. Very bad. Blackbeard pops out of the cover. Here comes Blackbeard. Really, nothing at first appearance looks like. It doesn't look like anything has happened. The Navy points that out. They're grinning. Maybe they're thinking, like, he didn't die, right? Because if he failed, in Enies Lobby, we learned from Cypherpole that consuming more than one devil fruit will, like, destroy your body. They'll just basically fall apart and die. Yeah, you said Blackbeard probably knows more than anyone on the sea. I mean, not counting Void Sentry knowledge, because that would obviously be like Jaguar Diesel or Vegapunk or Silver's Rayleigh. Not counting that in terms of like knowing the most about like devil fruits and knowing the most about how the Navy operates, knowing the most about territory generally around the world. I mean, I do think that Blackbeard's pretty hard to beat in that. And maybe he doesn't know specifically that much about the Void Sentry, but maybe he also does. And maybe he knows a lot about like pre Void Sentry. That's also a big chance too. Because it doesn't really, unless he's got like the voice of all things, which I don't necessarily think he does, then he really shouldn't be able to read any poneglyphs or anything, right? So he does his normal black hole stuff. That's the power of my dark fruit. He just kind of demonstrates it for him. Then he winds back. I wonder if he uses different hands, right? So he does right hand down for the dark fruit. And then left hand sure does look like it's doing the tremor fruit. Could be worth paying attention to that in the future if we see him use it a few more times. And the Whitebeard pirates realize that he's using the same stance that Blackbeard uses. And he smacks the air, creating an earthquake. Boy, that's not good. Not good at all. Love to see him use that fruit again. It does feel like we've barely seen him use the Tremor fruit compared to other things. And wow, that's some massive. He basically just destroys Marineford completely right there. Not that it was doing too hot before that. Alright, they're pretty shocked by all of this. Obviously, they've never seen anything like this. It's the power of the dead Whitebeard. How did he get it? So, I guess one thing I want to talk about here now that I'm thinking about how he could have done it, right? During Egghead Island, we learned that Vegapunk can recreate devil fruit powers in a few ways. He can make artificial Zoan devil fruits, and he can those can exist completely outside of like the original fruit, right? But he can also recreate paramecia types very easily with green blood that he's implanted into the seraphim. And he says that the paramecia abilities are contained within the bloodline elements, or in terms of our understanding, that's DNA, right? So maybe if he knows how devil fruits work enough, if Blackbeard knows enough, that he could somehow do something with, like, maybe he like absorbed Whitebeard's DNA before it was completely gone, right? Just an idea. Not 100% sure at all on that, but it is very interesting how he absorbed the ability, because we also haven't seen like the actual fruit be reborn into the world at all. Meaning that it doesn't feel like it's a copy, right? So, Blackbeard says, Zaha! It's the gravity of darkness that turns everything into nothingness, and the power of the earthquake that destroys everything. Now I have it all. I'm invincible. I'm the greatest. And then he's using his Tremor fruit in his right hand, dark fruit in his left hand. So it's not like he can use it freely on any hand, as I think I would have always expected, but it's kind of nice to just confirm it. There's no kind of weird hijinks coming in here. 72. And now we're kind of wrapping up Marineford, right? People are like, hey, I thought 2 devil fruit powers, that was impossible. And Marco says, that's true for normal humans, but as you know, Teach isn't normal. His body is odd. Maybe that explains it. And so there's this implication that something inherent in Blackbeard is different, that he is possibly of like a different race or a product of some experimentation or something. His body doesn't make sense, even to somebody that's probably one of the better doctors in this world, Marco. To all you commoners who love boring peace, to the Navy, to the world government, and to all the pirates, the future of the world has just been decided. Haha, yes. As of today, my era begins. Maybe a little bit of a, maybe making that call a little too early, but it was a pretty crazy move, right? I would definitely say that a recurring theme with Blackbeard is definitely a massive amount of overconfidence. Just massively overconfident. And this makes people pretty nervous, and for good reason. Right? The fate of the world is more chaotic than ever. Somebody having 2 of the 3 strongest devil fruits in existence is and such like a mysterious person, right? Like you don't know this person's motives at all or anything. And he's like, I can feel the power coursing through me. This is amazing. Blah 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 blah. And then he's like, I'm gonna sink Marineford, which he kind of already has, but he's like, I'm gonna do it all the way. And this is a big reality check for him here, right? He gets popped pretty good by Sengoku. Not that he's out of the fight or anything, but definitely shows him that he's far from indestructible, right? Also being backed up with how Whitebeard waxed him pretty good right before he died. I assumed he stole his heart the first time I saw it, but if he just drank his blood, or both, he ate the flesh and drank the blood. Oh, like it's some type of like, that's interesting, some type of like Jesus of Nazareth parallel or something. I mean, my honest opinion though, is that that dark fruit is so powerful and that he can just absorb things that he just like absorbed it straight through him with that devil fruit. Like he needed the dark fruit to ever be able to steal powers from anybody and all that kind of stuff. That's personally how I see it. That other stuff is interesting too. And he definitely functionally kind of does that. Like regardless if he it doesn't really matter if he literally ate like drank his blood or something, but like in terms of like a metaphorical sense, he did do that. And I think that kind of matters more anyways. Hmm. So Blackbeard talks about sinking this island, sinking Marineford, and all this kind of stuff. And he calls this an ominous day. But I think there's a lot of. This is going to be like late Egghead Island manga spoilers, so get out now if you can, because I'm going to just go right into it in a second. But Vegapunk announces that the world's going to sink, that it's going to happen. And Sengoku, in his position as a fleet admiral, you know, I assume that he knows that this is what's going to happen because that's what they're doing with the Tequila Wolf Bridge and all this kind of stuff. You'd have to wonder why they're up on the red line and stuff generally. And it's implied during Vegapunk's announcement of kind of sharing this information with the world that Sakazuki, Fleet Admiral Sakazuki's like, hey, you're going to just tell everybody this, Vegapunk? Which just implies that he knows it, which, if he knows it, I would assume Sengoku knows it. And, meaning that, like, the overall goal of the Navy is to not let the world sink into the sea, which I don't think is going to work out very well for them. Right? I don't think that's going to work out well at all. At this point, Trafalgar Law and stuff has shown up. We just get a quick glance at Blackbeard here being all crazy and stuff, causing chaos. I mean, this is totally erupted into mass pandemonium. And They just basically need to stall time for good old Shanks to show up. And again, they're just Blackbeard is really just ripping Marineford apart. And he says, This power is exhilarating. I can't control it too well yet. And his crewmates are a little worried he's going to accidentally kill them. And Blackbeard's power has caused a tsunami to head towards Sabaody. That is not good. Mm. His Buster Call. Yeah, that is kind of like a Buster Call. Yeah. And Blackbeard is really just kind of stoking everybody's bloodlust, right? Blackbeard and Akainu feel like they're kind of cut from the same cloth, that they are. They see the world very black and white, absolutes. Hmm. Here comes Shanks. Comes Shanks. Shanks is very particularly worried about Blackbeard, right? So he's like, hey, this war's over. You want to fight? And he's like, hey, Blackbeard, like, you want to go? And it is interesting how as soon as Teach ate the dark fruit, he starts going by a totally different name. Very interesting indeed. We know the dark fruit doesn't function like a normal Logia, so there's maybe a chance that it's a Zoan fruit, right? And when Luffy's fruit awakened, the five elders were talking about how Zoan fruits have a will of their own, and so if he also has a devil fruit that had a fake name, basically, right? A name that's been erased from history, and that its roots are actually more of a Zoan nature. That would be kind of like a good foil for Luffy, but it would also help explain a little bit of the personality change within Teach. Oh, Blackbeard's just like, all right, well, I'm not gonna fight Shanks. That's crazy. So, bye. And then in the post Marineford, we see a little bit about what exactly went down in Impel Down, right? Sounds like Magellan basically got his ass kicked by the entirety of the Blackbeard pirates on their way back up, which that sounds kind of expected, right? Like Blackbeard by himself, not that big of a concern at that moment for Magellan, but the entirety of the Blackbeard pirates, including Cherry, like that's not going to be an easy fight. Hmm. This level 6 is in shambles because Blackbeard showed up at level 6 and right, Photoshop, you quit working on me, buddy? I have to open this one again. This is the last one too. He says, you got nothing left to lose, so how about it? Kill each other in those cages, and whoever wins or survives, you can join me. And so he took the strongest of the world's strongest and most dangerous prisoners. And he says, obviously, there are many more who are missing from those cells in level 6, which is interesting too, because that's like Iva and stuff, right? Oh wait, Iva wasn't in level 6. Oh, Crocodile? That's level 6. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying to think, like, what? Why does Blackbeard have all his teeth right here? What the hell? I seriously am just like, this whole time his teeth have been so consistent, and then right here. What am I supposed to think about that? I don't think I can read too much into it. I'm just gonna say, oh, I fucked up. But what was his power of how he made the wave? Just earthquakes cause tsunamis, right? Who are you talking about? What was his power? And Zanzi. By the way, I appreciate you chatting this whole time. It was nice talking to you. Nice having you as part of the stream. But Magellan, what was his power? It's a venom fruit. So it makes this really nasty, deadly poison. Alright, my voice is going. I'm gonna go. Bye.